A royal clash that rocked the globe when a fearless journalist blasted Prince Harry on live TV. Hold on to your seats, because what exploded on The View was a heart-stopping, mind-blowing showdown that left jaws on the floor. This wasn't just a chat. It was a verbal cage match, a clash of raw emotion and brutal honesty that no one saw coming. Before we plunge into this electrifying face-off, smash that subscribe button and leave a comment, because trust me, you'll want to dissect this one with everyone. The studio lights burned bright as Megyn Kelly slid into the guest host chair, her razor sharp confidence lighting up the set. She was there to shake things up, and boy did she deliver. What unfolded was a TV moment for the ages, one that left the host, the audience, and Prince Harry himself reeling. The stage was primed for a special episode of The View centered on media accountability and the lives of public figures. The air crackled with anticipation, but a faint tension simmered as Whoopi Goldberg introduced the next guest. He needs no introduction. She said, her voice tinged with unease. He's here to talk about his latest charitable efforts and his tangled relationship with the press. Please welcome Prince Harry. The crowd roared as Harry strode onto the set, his polished royal charm on full display. He flashed that megawatt smile that had won over millions, settling into the interview chair with ease. But Megyn Kelly wasn't smiling back, her gaze locked onto him, cool and calculating like a hunter eyeing her target. Prince Harry, welcome to The View. Kelly began, her tone professional but laced with sharpness that thickened the air. It's curious timing for this visit. Given your recent remarks about media responsibility, Harry shifted slightly, perhaps sensing the storm brewing. Thanks for having me, Megyn. He said, his voice steady. I believe it's more crucial than ever to discuss how the press operates and its impact on real people's lives. Kelly's eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, her words slicing through the niceties. Real people's lives. She echoed, her tone heavy with skepticism. That's an interesting phrase from someone who's built a fortune selling those very personal stories to the highest bidder. How do you square preaching about privacy while penning tell-all books and dishing out bombshell interviews of studio? When dead quiet, you could have heard a feather drop. This wasn't the warm, fuzzy interview Harry likely expected. Joy Behar squirmed in her seat while Sarah Haynes darted nervous glances between Kelly and Harry. The audience was glued to the drama, every eye locked on the stage. Harry's smile flickered for a moment before he regained his poise. I think there's a difference between owning your story and letting others twist it, Megyn, he said, his voice calm but strained. When you've been lied about, when your family has been attacked, sometimes you have to set things straight. Kelly's lips twitched into a faint, almost predatory smirk. Set things straight, she pressed her voice, sharpening. Is that what you call it? Because from my seat, it looks like a deliberate campaign to tear down your own family. For profit, you've accused them of racism, of cutting you off financially, of failing to protect your wife. Yet here you are, still wielding your royal title, still cashing in on the very institution you claim wronged you. The tension was suffocating now. Cameras zoomed in, catching every twitch of Harry's face. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed. I think you're oversimplifying a very complex situation, Megyn, he said, his voice steady, but with a hint of strain. The institution and the family are separate entities. Kelly pounced. Are they? She fired back, her words sharp as daggers. Because you blur that line whenever it fits your narrative. Your grandmother, who you claim to adore, was the head of that institution. Your father, who you publicly slammed, is now its head. So when you attack the monarchy, you're attacking them personally, aren't you? Harry's polished facade began to crack. That's not fair, Megyn, he said, his voice rising slightly. You're twisting my words. Kelly leaned back completely. You rattled him using your words, Harry. She said, cool, your exact words from your interviews, your book, your Netflix specials. You can't have it both ways. You can't demand privacy while spilling your family's secrets on global stages. You can't claim to protect your family while airing their private talks for the world to pick apart. And you certainly can't play the victim while living in a multi-million-dollar mansion and signing blockbuster media deals. The other host swapped uneasy looks, unsure whether to jump in or let the battle rage. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice cautious. Megyn, maybe we should let Harry respond. But Kelly was relentless. Oh, I want him to respond. She set her eyes fixed on Harry. I want him to explain to the mothers watching this show, the single moms, the women grinding through 2 jobs to survive, how someone born into unimaginable privilege, who's never wanted for anything, can cast himself as a victim of circumstance. Harry's face flushed, his royal training battling his growing frustration. You don't know what it was like growing up in that world, Megyn, he said, his voice tight. You don't know what it's like to lose your mother to the very press you're defending, to watch your wife be shredded by the same machine. Kelly didn't blink. You're right, she said, her tone unyielding. I don't know what it's like to be born into royalty, but I do know what it's like to earn everything I have. I know what it's like to face media scrutiny. without a team of publicists or a multi-million-dollar platform to push back. And I know what accountability looks like. The audience was silent. Every eye riveted to the stage. Harry glanced around, perhaps hoping for an ally, but found only awkward faces. Accountability. He repeated, his voice rising. Let's talk about accountability. Megyn, let's talk about the media's accountability. For my mother's death, for the racist coverage of my wife, for the lies and distortions printed about my family for decades. Kelly's eyes gleamed, seizing the opening. Your mother's death was a tragedy, Harry, and no one disputes that. But using her death as a shield for your own choices, your own actions, that's not honoring her memory, that's exploiting it. And as for your wife, she was a working actress who married a prince and became a duchess. Media attention comes with the territory. You knew it, she knew it, everyone knew it. She didn't deserve the treatment she got, Harry insisted, his voice thick with emotion. No one deserves unfair treatment, Kelly conceded, but her tone stayed firm. But life isn't fair, Prince Harry, and instead of handling it with the grace and dignity your grandmother showed for 70 years, or your father has shown, or your brother is showing, you chose to torch it all. And now you want sympathy for the fallout of your own choices. Harry's hands clenched in, his lap, his royal poise crumbling. You think you know everything, don't you, Megyn? He said, his voice cracking. You sit there in your ivory tower, passing judgment on people you've never met, situations you've never lived. Kelly's eyebrows shot up, a faint smile playing on her lips. Ivory tower. That's rich coming from someone who grew up in actual palaces. But you're right about one thing. I do pass judgment. It's called journalism, and it's what I built my career on. Unlike you, I didn't inherit my platform. Harry's eyes flashed. You have no idea what kind of pressure I was under. He snapped. The constant scrutiny, the impossible expectations. Watching my wife struggle with suicidal thoughts because of the treatment she got. The audience gasped, but Kelly held firm. Those are serious claims, Harry, she said, her voice steady, and if true, they deserve compassion and support, but using them as a weapon to publicly attack your family, that's not seeking help, that's seeking revenge. Joy Behar finally spoke, her voice hesitant. Megyn, maybe we should focus on Harry's charitable work. But Kelly waved her off. No, Joy, this is exactly the kind of softball treatment that's enabled this behavior. Prince Harry came here to promote himself and his causes while playing the victim. The audience deserves some hard truths. Harry leaned forward, his eyes blazing. Hard truths? You want hard truths, Megyn? The hard truth is the British press killed my mother, and they were trying to do the same to my wife. The hard truth is my own family threw us to the wolves to protect themselves. Kelly's response was devastating. Your mother chose to get in that car. She said, her words cutting like a blade. The audience gasped louder this time. She chose not to wear a seatbelt. She chose to be with a driver who was reckless. Yes, the paparazzi were chasing her, and yes, that was wrong. But at some point, personal responsibility has come into play. Harry's face went pale, then red with rage. How dare you? He said, his voice trembling. How dare you sit there and blame my mother for her own death? Kelly stood her ground, him not blaming her. She said, her voice steady, him saying, life is complex, and tragedy involves multiple factors. Turning your mother's death into a political weapon to justify your choices dishonors her memory. Whoopi tried to step in. Maybe we should take a commercial break. But Harry wasn't done. No, he said, his voice shaking with fury. I want to finish this. You think you're so clever, Megyn, with your gotcha questions and your superior attitude, but you're just another media parasite feeding off other people's pain for your own gain. Kelly's smile wide unshaken. There is, she said, the real Prince Harry, not the grieving son, not the protective husband, just an entitled man who can't handle being challenged. You know the difference between us, Harry, when I'm criticized, when I'm attacked, when I make mistakes. I don't write a book about it. I don't go on a global media tour. I don't blame my family. I take responsibility and move on. You have no idea what you're talking about, Harry said, his voice breaking. Don't I? Kelly replied, leaning back in her chair, fully in control. I see a man who had everything handed to him, a platform to do incredible good in the world. And instead of rising to that challenge, instead of honoring the legacy he inherited, he chose to tear it all down because he couldn't handle sharing the spotlight with his brother. Harry's face twisted with anger. This has nothing to do with William, he protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Everything has to do with William, Kelly pressed. He's the heir, you're the spare, and you've never gotten over it. Your whole life has been defined by that dynamic, and instead of finding your own path, you decided to burn everything down. Harry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this, he said, his voice shaking. Kelly stayed seated, calm and composed. Actually, you do, she said. You booked this appearance. You came here to sell your narrative, but narratives work both ways. And right now the story being told is about a privileged man who can't handle criticism. Sarah Haynes spoke up, her voice soft. Harry, please sit down. Let's try to have a civil conversation. But Harry stayed standing, his chest Heaving civil, there's nothing civil about what she's doing. She's ambushing me, twisting my words, attacking my family. I'm asking you questions, Kelly said, even the same questions millions of people are asking. If you can't answer them, if you can't defend your choices without throwing a tantrum, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. Harry's voice grew. Louder. You think this is a tantrum? You think standing up for my wife, my children, my mother's memory is a tantrum? Kelly's response was ice old. I think using them as shields while you attack everyone around you is cowardly. I think trading on their pain for profit is despicable. And I think hiding behind victimhood when you're one of the most privileged people on the planet is pathetic. The studio was a pressure cooker, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Harry looked around, his eyes wild, searching for an ally or an exit. You know what, Megyn, he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. You're everything that's wrong with modern media. You're cruel, heartless, and exactly the kind of person who made my life hell growing up. Kelly nodded, almost thoughtfully. And you, Prince Harry, are everything that's wrong with modern celebrity culture. You want all the perks of fame without any of the responsibilities. You want sympathy without accountability. You want to be seen as a victim while living like a king. The words landed like a challenge thrown at dawn. Harry's face cycled through a storm of emotions, rage, hurt, disbelief, before settling into something cold and calculated. He sat back down slowly, his movements deliberate. You want to play this game, Megyn, he said, his voice low and intense. Fine. Let's talk about accountability. Let's talk about your accountability. How many lives have you destroyed with your reporting? How many families have you torn apart for ratings? Kelly's confidence flickered for a moment, but she recovered quickly. I report the truth, Harry, she said. Something you seem allergic to. Harry laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Is that what you call it when you spend weeks attacking a grieving family? When you turn tragedy into entertainment? You talk about my mother like she was some reckless teenager instead of a woman hunted by photographers who saw her as nothing but a commodity. Kelly's voice softened slightly, but her resolve held. Your mother was a grown woman who made choices. She said my mother was 36 years old, Harry countered, his voice rising with emotion. She was trying to find happiness after a marriage destroyed by an institution that cared more about appearances than people. She was stalked, harassed, and commodities every day of her life. And when she died, people like you turned it into a story, into content, into something to be dissected for public consumption. Whoopi leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Harry, I think we all understand your pain. Harry turned to her, his eyes blazing. Do you? Because Megyn just told a national television audience that my mother was responsible for her own death. She sat there comfortable in her chair and reduced one of the most traumatic events in modern royal history to a lesson about personal responsibility. Kelly shifted in her seat, her earlier fire dimming. I didn't say she was responsible, she clarified. I said multiple factors were involved. Harry wasn't letting her off. You said she chose again that car. He fired back. He said she chose not to wear a seatbelt. You reduced her final moments to a series of bad choices. Instead of acknowledging that she was running for her life from the very media machine, you represent the audience was spellbound watching this role reversal as Harry gained momentum. And Kelly certainly faltered. And you want to talk about my book, my interviews? Harry continued, his voice steady. Now at least I'm telling my own story. At least I'm speaking my own truth. Instead of letting others define me, you've made a career out of telling other people's stories, often without their permission, often without their consent. Joy Behar, try to lighten the mood. Well, that's what journalists do, Harry. But Harry wasn't having it, is it? He said, turning to her. I thought journalism was about like comment, share, subscribe.